And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talking about the Timberwolves and their series against the Denver Nuggets. So the Nuggets, they went up in the series 3-2 and therefore had a very huge advantage going into game 6. Timberwolves responded by blowing them out of the water, and it seemed like Jokic was really, really upset, and it seemed like we were going to see a Jokic masterclass coming in the next game, but that never happened. I mean, his final stat lines were 34 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists. However, he shot very poorly from the field. He shot 13 of 28 from the field and 2 of 10 from 3. He didn't make his first 3 up until like the fourth quarter of the game. And it was, and not to mention, Jamal Murray also shot rather poorly. I mean, he ended the game with 35 points, but he was 4 for 12 from the 3-point line. And Michael Porter Jr., he was also very poorly. He also played poorly in this game, shooting 3 for 12 from the field and 1 for 6 from 3 with 7 points. And not to mention, I mean, this is Michael Porter Jr. we're talking about, so of course he ended the game with 0 assists. You know, his nickname is Michael, the possession ends here, Porter Jr. And it's kind of a funny nickname if you really think about it. But on the Timberwolves side, Anthony Edwards also played very poorly, even though the Timberwolves ended up winning. He ended the game playing 44 minutes, 16 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, and was 6 for 24 from the field. This was not his night, but that didn't really matter because they were playing, they weren't, honestly, this game was a slugfest. Like, it was a straight defensive battle coming in for the Timberwolves, and to start the game, well, towards the end of the game, it was a slugfest. That's my bad. Towards the beginning of the game, it was looking like a blowout for the Denver Nuggets. They were up by 20 points, and it really seemed like the Denver Nuggets were going to end up coming out and winning this game. But as the game kept going, and as the offense for the Nuggets was getting stagnant, the Timberwolves were slowly creeping up on them, and they were getting the stops that they needed and they were capitalizing with the offense that they had in this game, and that caused them to win the game. Jaden McDaniels was 7 for 10 from the field and ended the game with 23 points. Karl Anthony Towns was 8 for 14, ended the game with 23 points. And Rudy Gobert, he is not going to get enough credit for this series, or he's not going to get as much credit as the rest of these players are going to get, because Rudy Gobert in this elimination game, he was 3 for 7, and he had 13 points. However, his defense on Jokic and his defense, like overall in the past 2 games after Jokic dropped an efficient 40 points on him, was great. Looking at the box scores, allowing Jokic to drop 34 points, it isn't really that great. However, Jokic ended up taking a lot of shots, 28 shots. And when I was watching the game, Jokic was forcing a lot of really bad shots over Rudy Gobert. And it really seemed like he was trying to will the team back into this game, but it just wasn't working. Gobert had an answer for everything, and it really shows. And judging off of the Game 6 victory and how badly they got blown out, and then going into Game 7 and doing almost the exact same thing, it shows just how good of a defender Rudy Gobert actually is. And it seems like that trade that... There is a fly in front of me, so that's my fault. But it does seem that the trade that the Timberwolves have made for Rudy Gobert is totally paying off. And I, for one, was one of the people that completely disagreed with that trade. I did not like the looks of that trade whatsoever. I'm not a big Rudy Gobert fan, but it really, it seems that it's like done the exact opposite of what I thought it was going to do for the entire franchise. I thought having two centers in the lineup was just a bad mix overall. Even though Karl Anthony Towns could shoot, I thought two centers in the lineup was just, it wasn't that effective in an era where there's a lot of outside threats. Therefore, needing the centers to play outside on the perimeter, which is something that isn't ideal for Rudy Gobert. But so far, it's been proven to be working, and it's really unfortunate how the Nuggets, they ended up blowing a 20-point lead. It seemed like that's what made them so formidable over these years. The fact that this team was a closing team, and now they just blow the lead in embarrassing fashion in Game 7. I mean, especially at home. Now, Jokic, he had something to say after the game. He said, just look at their roster. They basically have 2 All-Stars, 2 probably defensive players of the year, Mike Conley, who is the most underrated player in the NBA. And the players that he's talking about, the 2 All-Stars, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, the 2 defensive players of the year, Reed and Rudy Gobert, and then Mike Conley, obviously, he is underrated. Like, Jokic does have a point in saying that Mike Conley is extremely underrated because he is a very good point guard. He's always available for the team, and he was on the Memphis Grizzlies at one point when the Grizzlies were having their winning seasons with Marc Gasol. But I mean, aside from that, he's not really that popular simply because like his game isn't as, I mean, I don't know why. Like, he's on low market teams, I think. I'd like to say that's probably the biggest reason as to why he's not that popular. I mean, he was on the Grizzlies, he was on the Jazz, and now he's on the Timberwolves. And it's like now they're getting marketed, but before they weren't getting as much media attention as, you know, as they would expect, or as you would expect coming in from an NBA team. But this loss, it was between the Knicks and the Nuggets. I think this loss was a little bit more embarrassing because they had the lead and they had Jamal Murray playing phenomenally throughout the first half of this game, but then they just blew it after a little bit of defense coming in from the Timberwolves. And I mean, it's honestly really entertaining. Like, that game was very, very entertaining and how close it was. I didn't like the outcome of it simply because, like, I wanted the Nuggets to end up winning it so we could see Jokic against the Dallas Mavericks. But aside from that, we'll get to see the... speaking of the Dallas Mavericks, actually, I just looked at the time, and we are out of time for this second segment. Jesus, I am not in my right mind right now. I'm still kind of upset that the Knicks lost, and right now everything is just spiraling in my head. But regardless, speaking of the Dallas Mavericks, we can actually go into the third segment where I talk about the OKC and the Mavericks series, since that series was decided in 6 games, and it happened over the weekend, so I couldn't really cover it for the podcast. So I might as well do that now, and I will be right back after this short break. And I don't think I have anything more to say about the Timberwolves, so I will be right back.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.